I'm Johan Langerock, working at Oxfam as a EU policy advisor on tax and inequality. Let me first apologize for my continental European English. Very sorry for that. Until now, we had only native English speakers, I think. So I hope you're not. I hope you stay with me and bear with me. So the question of this plenary session is how to tackle tax avoidance. And let me first start by summarizing what Oxfam is doing and what are the Oxfam priorities before moving to the topic that I should be discussing, which is public country-by-country reporting, because I was specifically invited today to explain you where public country-by-country reporting stands in the European Union. I don't know how familiar you are with European processes, but public country-by-country reporting is the ideal file to get to know how the European Union works. It's very complicated, many processes, but you really get to know it. But first, so what are the Oxfam priorities? So it's very similar to what Robert has just said, but for Oxfam, first, tax transparency, public country-by-country reporting, core priority. Second priority is tackling the race to the bottom in corporate tax rates. So what is Oxfam now trying or working on is how could we implement minimum tax rates or minimum effective tax rates in the international tax arena, because what we see now is countries, they are stopping all their hybrid mismatches, all these special rules for companies to avoid tax, but they just lower now their corporate tax rates, which in the end is the same result. So how do we tackle that problem? Then third priority is anti-tax havens, and Oxfam has done a lot of work on ending corporate tax havens. You might have seen our report in November 2017 on the EU blacklist of tax havens. Ask me all questions about it during breaks, but I won't unfortunately talk about it today. And then another priority for us is stop harmful tax practices and harmful tax incentives in developing countries, but also in the European Union. One of the priorities, for example, is to stop patent boxes. Patent boxes are extremely harmful. They lower the effective tax rates of multinationals and especially pharmaceuticals to 5%, more or less, which is ridiculously low. One other priority is change the tax rules fundamentally. It just sounds a bit obvious, but it's about taxing rights, how to tax the digital economy, those kind of questions. And then, last but not least, the global tax governance is a core priority for us. Are we going to create a global tax body? Should we go to an international tax conference where all countries come together? Whatsoever, these global tax governance questions are a core priority for us as well. So that's very quickly how we want to tackle tax avoidance at Oxfam, but let me now go on to public country-by-country reporting very quickly. And there I will go through three parts. First, what's going on at the European Union level on public country-by-country reporting. Secondly, why public country-by-country reporting is important for developing countries. And last, some fun facts around public country-by-country reporting. So let me start with this picture. You might wonder why this picture in front of the European Commission. So let me explain. This picture was taken the 28th of May, which was 1 week ago. A lot is happening at the moment, but one week ago. Monday, 28th of May, the council is where the countries come together, was meeting, but they were not discussing public country-by-country reporting as they were supposed to do. They again didn't put it on the agenda as they were avoiding discussing this file. And they have been avoiding discussing this file for 2 years already, because they don't want to pursue this idea of public country-by-country reporting, or at least some European countries don't want to pursue this idea. So what did we do? Oxfam, we organized a stunt in front of the European Commission. This is Schuman Square in Brussels, where it's a bit the center of European politics, and a bit the torture room of Britain, really. This is Schuman Square. So what did we do 40 years ago, actually? And this was a really good report of Tax Justice Network, authored by Marcus Meissner, a great tax justice activist, who actually looked up the whole history of public country-by-country reporting and found out that the idea started 41 years ago during a UN commission for transnational enterprises. And 40 years ago, the OECD member states in that commission managed to block that idea by just saying, well, if this commission continues its work under majority rule, we will step out of the game and we will not fund it anymore. So what happened? Unanimity was decided, so you had to decide everything by unanimity, and of course, public country-by-country reporting was not decided at that stage. So, 40 years later, we are at Schuman Square, still fighting for public country-by-country reporting. But 4 years ago was also Greece in the cinemas, so we thought, let's combine both and make it fun. So we set up a stage, invited dancers, and we had public country-by-country reporting. You're the one that I want, and that's actually what happened. So that's how you can explain this picture. But more seriously now, so what is happening at EU level is that the European Commission initiated the proposal for public country-by-country reporting in 2016. Before that, there was already a huge debate around it, but in 2016 they formally introduced it as a legislative proposal. Then the European Parliament decided on its own position. So the European Parliament has a position, the European Commission has it, and now we need the Council. And the Council is where the countries come together, as I said, and they have been blocking it for 2 years. And without a Council position on this file, we can't move forward. So they can block it for years, as they have been doing with the financial transaction tax. And until the Council has no position, we cannot start what we call in Europe the trilogue negotiations, which are negotiations between the European Commission, European Parliament, and the Council to come up with a final proposal, which is then voted in Parliament and in the Council. So at the moment, this file is stuck, unfortunately. So tax justice activists are now putting an increased pressure on politicians to finally debate this in Council, and let's hope. Let's hope. But on 14th of June, this file should be discussed again among countries, and this is a key date for us. This might mean a breakthrough. It is very important that there is a breakthrough as soon as possible, because European elections are approaching, and European elections mean also a new European Commission. And I don't know if you know, but the European Commission, it might sound strange, but has been a progressive force for the last 4 years on tax. In the international power play on tax, the European Union, but especially the European Commission and European Parliament, have been a major progressive force. European Parliament, very progressive, European Commission, progressive, but still very good. And that might change after the European elections, so we can't lose this momentum for public country-by-country reporting. So why is public country-by-country reporting important for developing countries? It's very easy. Developing countries are lagging behind what concerns information. So we have now country-by-country reporting, which was implemented through the BEPS process, Action 13. The problem there is really that developing countries are not receiving the same amount of information as a typical developed country. So what we ask for is make country-by-country reporting public, not the OECD country-by-country reporting, just a different kind of country-by-country reporting public. This is not an anti-tax avoidance tool, let's be clear. This is a risk assessment tool, public country-by-country reporting. This is just for countries to quickly see what is happening out there and to quickly, well, this looks strange, let me further investigate what is happening here. That's it. And moving now very quickly to the fun facts, you would expect tax inspectors to say, well, we don't want public country-by-country reporting because there will be a kind of competition between the public and us. Deciding who is doing what and what is tax avoidance, etc. We want to keep our own job. But actually, no. The European Public Services Union they're also representing tax inspectors. They've been very clear. They published a paper saying 6 reasons for public country-by-country reporting. And tax inspectors are in favor of public country-by-country reporting because, first of all, there are major cuts in tax authorities at the moment in several member states. It's also a logical consequence of digitalization, so a lot of tax controls are now being conducted via data search and data mining. But at the same time, it's also an ideological thing. Governments promise to tackle tax avoidance, but at the same time, they they crack down on tax inspectors. So tax inspectors say, to protect our job, we need public country-by-country reporting because we need the public pressure. And sometimes tax inspectors are put under pressure by their hierarchies as well. So if they have a complex case in front of them, the hierarchy will say, well, it's too complex, it will cost you too much time to investigate, and the potential benefit out of this is too little, so let's not investigate. And with public country-by-country reporting, they could actually make the case like, well, the public is asking for this, so we need to work on this file. So tax inspectors are really in favor of this, and that's a kind of group you don't expect to be in favor of this. Richard and Alex have already extensively contributed on the fact why some investors are in favor of public country-by-country reporting. And there's been a lot of bashing, so to say, on Big Four today. I feel a bit sad about it because I was myself working for a Big Four at the moment. But there's actually a great quote, and I will end with that, of global head of tax of KPMG on public country-by-country reporting. And she said, as with any other business practice, if companies can't explain what they are doing on tax, then either they should not be doing it, or they need to get better at communicating. And that's what Fair Tax Mark is doing. So let's guide all these companies who can't explain to Fair Tax Mark, and if they can't explain, then we should have public country-by-country reporting as soon as possible. Thank you very much.